Money is a database. Money doesn't have power in and of itself. Like you can run the thought experiment of if you're trapped on a remote island, shipwrecked on an island, and you've got $1 trillion in a Swiss bank account. It's worthless. You'd rather have a can of soup. So, all the Bitcoin in the world, you're still going to starve. So,
when there's a crash, I hope it's going to be during this next 12 months, because I don't want to be Herbert Hoover. The one president, I just don't want to be Herbert Hoover.
Donald Trump is the only president in American history, other than Herbert Hoover, who lost more jobs than he had when he came in. That's why I call him Donald Herbert Hoover Trump.
Am I going to impose tariffs on the European Union? Do you want the truthful answer, or should I give you a political answer? Absolutely. Absolutely. The European Union has treated us so terribly. Tariffs don't cause inflation, they cause success. Cause big success. So we're going to have great success. There could be some temporary short-term disruption, and people will understand that. I had that when I negotiated some of the good deals for the farmers, and unfortunately those deals have been led astray by Biden and his people because they didn't enforce the deals. We have a deal with China, which is phenomenal for the farmers, but there was nobody to enforce it in the Biden administration. They let them get away with murder. So that's another thing we're going to be bringing. They committed. Wait a minute. They committed to buying $50 billion worth of farm product, and they did it when I was president. As soon as I left, they stopped doing it because there was nobody in Biden to enforce it. But the tariffs are going to make us very rich and very strong, and we're going to treat other countries very fairly. But if you think about it, other countries charge us tariffs. We don't charge them tariffs. And it's about time that changes. Tariffs, the word tariff is a very misunderstood word. You've heard me say, I say it kiddingly, but it's one of the most beautiful words in the dictionary, really is. And we've been taken advantage of because others have charged us VATs. As an example, the European Union charges us 20% plus a VAT tax, called a VAT tax, very similar. And it costs us an absolute fortune. We are treated so badly. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm products, essentially. They don't take almost anything. And we have a tremendous deficit with the European Union. So we'll be doing something very substantial with the European Union. We're going to bring the level up to where it should be.
There. But what we would do is highlight what happened the first Trump administration, which is there was a threat. Then a deal was struck, right, between the U.S. and Mexico, and tariffs were averted. I think the base case assumption people are playing is that that could happen because the downside is like double-digit earnings hits. We saw the stock react to kind of absorb some of the negativity, and now it's rebounding because of whatever this recent news is. But so far, the market doesn't seem to be pricing in a structural long-term tariff hit.
A fascinating mental exercise. Let's talk about what would happen if these tariffs went into effect. You mentioned a double-digit earnings hit. Some say we should expect car prices here to go up by a couple $1,000s. There's questions about, I think you've made this point, that even the EVs, I guess we make the batteries here and then we ship them to Mexico to be assembled and then they come back in or something to that effect. So it's very complicated.
Yeah, I mean, the devil's in the details of what actually winds up being called out in the formal announcement of what exactly how the tariffs are determined. Is it final assembly? Where, because there's ways around it. Also, the OEMs like GM, they make pickups, sure, in Mexico. They also make them in the U.S., so they could just increase production, obviously, in the U.S. instead of Mexico, but then what happens to the supply chain, right? Most of the seats are made in Mexico. Those guys can't just change and make seats all of a sudden in the U.S. So those OEMs would have to source the seats from Europe, which would cost a lot. So what would then happen? They would pass that on to the consumer. You and I would pay more for cars, which are already very expensive.
Yeah.
That's why I think most people expect, if it does happen, you'll have some inflation, but really more than anything, car sales would just come down.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher, and I come back with that video just to make you think. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And make sure you're joining the Patrons. If you're not a part of the Patrons, make sure you're hitting the Cash App. And also, guys, make sure you go like and follow the TikTok. More videos to come. And we have Elon Musk tells the truth about money. None but a database. And that's the reason why before money, what did we do? We bartered for goods and services. We made our own food, our own products. Now we allow the major corporations to control the food supply and the manufacturing. Of course, they send it overseas. And remember, the crypto teacher told you. And we had Trump says he doesn't want to be Herbert Hoover. And what does Biden call him? That's right, Herbert Hoover. Says Trump is going to put a lot of people out of work. And we know Trump is definitely going to put a lot of people out of work. But those people are going to get that free money. But little do they know, that money comes with smart contracts. So they'll be able to tell you what, when, and how to buy. And you have 3 to 6 months to spend it or poof, it's gone. And remember, the crypto teacher told you. And we had Trump promise us these tariffs, and here they come. We have Canada, Mexico, China, the EU. And behind that, we know inflation is coming. And of course, a lot of job loss. And it's going to drive down sales and goods. And then also hurting small and medium-sized businesses. And then, of course, they have no choice but to lay off and close down. Remember, guys, this is a plan and moves in phases. This is all about the fourth industrial revolution. They want to destroy this whole legacy market so Trump can build this digital economy. And remember, the crypto teacher told you. And while the small and medium-sized banks are closing, these corporations are going to get bigger. They're going to get very rich due to the rise of the machines. The machines can work 24/7. And remember, the crypto teacher told you. And we have former Fed official gives info to China. And all you have to do is keep note of this because we know this is part of the movie. Just sit back, get your popcorn, and let it play out. And remember, the crypto teacher told you. Because he knows when it comes to the NWO, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
Mexico, for example, is a major source of vegetables, tomatoes, avocados. Your Super Bowl guacamole could cost more this year with these tariffs in place. And of course, Canada is a major trading partner for many commodities and auto parts. As we know, a typical car, the parts in that car will cross the Detroit River 7 times before they're assembled into a car. The cumulative effect of a 25% tariff could be really detrimental to a lot of makes and models of cars that.
By the way, Trump also said we'll be doing something very substantial on tariffs with the European Union. So we are seeing sharp reactions in the currency markets to a lot of these headlines, peso, Canadian dollar, as well as the euro taking a hit on the back. But what's your initial take here? We sort of knew this was going to happen. We didn't know it was going to happen in quite this way.
We didn't know it was
but here we are.
We didn't know Saturday. We heard March 1. I thought March 1 was the headline this morning for Canada and Mexico. After we started to digest that yesterday, China, we've had this number out there, 10% on some levels, already been in the market and already kind of a relief. The concept of this being to reverse flow of illegal immigrants and illegal drugs is one way to get going on it. I mean, there's a lot of different rationale out there from the administration as to why these things are happening. Ultimately, it's really about a competitive balance that they believe anyone who's in deficit, we're in deficit too, should be had tariffs put on them. It's interesting to think about the currency markets because going into this, you can make an argument that the U.S. dollar was already strong and that there was a lot of pressure, actually potentially on multinationals in this country because of the stronger dollar. We started to hear about that in earnings season. When I hear that, at least at this stage of a cycle, it doesn't really bother me as an investor for a lot of these companies. But for the European Union, which had a 25 basis point cut this week, ECB, if anything, was rumored to maybe they could go more, they will go more. I think we're breaking parity here, and I think it will be, just to be clear, I think that will be a mitigating factor on inflation. I think a stronger dollar certainly will have more buying power and be helpful. But we don't really know what the impact of all this, and it's just interesting to see how quickly tariffs have come back into the market, which closed on the lows today. But think about where we were a week ago.
Yeah, so he said that he doesn't expect the markets to be affected and that it's not going to affect inflation. I'll just make this point. We just got this GDP number at 2.3%. This is after 2 consecutive 3% GDP prints, quarterly. And so the economy was kind of limping into the end of the year. I think expectations were higher than that for Q4. So one of the things we can be fairly certain on, if these sorts of tariffs stay on some of these key industries, it is going to weaken economic demand here. It just will. And so at the end of the day, the president uses the stock market as a report card, but if the economy starts to weaken, the S&P is going to start to anticipate that.
I mean, the dollar obviously is such an important thing. The sector, of course, of the area of the market that has the biggest exposure is tech. I mean, bar none, right? So obviously the big consumer staples, the big energy names, but technology is the highest sort of exposure to a weak or strong dollar. And it's no nonsense when the S&P is doing one thing, but the tech now down on the year. You've got semis struggling, and I think a lot of it has to do with not only the great appreciation that preceded this start to the year, but the dollar.
Right. Yeah, and I think a lot of this, too, people were wondering, are the tariffs just going to be negotiation tactics, or are these actually going to come on? And clearly we're seeing these are coming on. And this is why the bond markets have been pricing in inflation. I mean, whether it's tariffs, whether it's tax cuts, a lot of these are inflationary policies, and that is why markets are concerned about where inflation's going. So they're optimistic about deregulation. They are worried about inflation. Markets are kind of up and down as they're trying to figure out where that's going to go. But I would expect that's going to continue to affect the markets as this news continues to come out.
Thank you, Melissa. Yes, the Justice Department just the last hour charged a former senior Federal Reserve official with conspiracy to commit economic espionage. The justice says a 63-year-old John Harold Rogers is alleged to have passed, quote, sensitive trade secret information from the Federal Reserve to co-conspirators in China. Rogers was said specifically to solicit briefing books for governors, proprietary data sets, and sensitive information about FOMC deliberations. Apparently, he printed this info out or sent it to his personal email in violation of Federal Reserve rules in preparation for trips to China. Rogers allegedly made false statements to the Federal Reserve's Inspector General about accessing and passage of this information, as well as his association with co-conspirators. He worked as a Fed senior advisor in the Division of International Finance from 2010 to 2021. These alleged actions ran from 2013 to 2025 in the indictment. It says that's even after he left the Fed. The Justice Department says the info was passed, that Rogers passed was, quote, economically valuable. They went on to say that the data provided could allow China to manipulate U.S. markets. He provided info, quote, under the guise of teaching classes. The indictment cites two unnamed co-conspirators who the indictment says worked for the Chinese intelligence apparatus and presented themselves as graduate students. He was paid $450,000 in 2023 as a part-time professor at a Chinese university. The Fed declined to make any public comments about this, and the Federal Reserve Inspector General, who was involved in this but is quoted in this, could not immediately be reached for.
Going to a different economy. And we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box, provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? if we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of a huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in in ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we could have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Chinese bank ICBC has been hit by a ransomware attack, and the U.S. Treasury market, as a result of that, has been disrupted. This, according to the Financial Times. We're getting at more right now with Bloomberg's Shonali Bassick. Shonali, what do we know?
Listen, we have the Financial Times now reporting that ICBC, one of China's largest banks here, was hit with a ransomware attack. And remember, they're a very significant intermediary in the Treasury market. The SIFMA has told its members that this has been part of the reason here that the system is kind of clogged up, if you will, during that auction that we saw a little bit before. The attack had prevented ICBC, according to the Financial Times, from settling Treasury trades on behalf of other market participants. A large executive at a major bank also telling the paper that such a large party on the fixed income clearing corp creates major concerns, potentially impacting the liquidity of Treasury markets.
Now, it was not just a poor auction. It was absolutely lousy, and when the dealers have to step in to save a Treasury auction, that's a rare occurrence.
Cryptoteacher and the New World Order book, plus the 3 kids books. It's time to re-educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get home stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing, they were still getting that free money. What are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids books. I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York. COVID 33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.